Welcome and thank you for joining us for the KPA DigiGo webinar today on how to actually make money in car sales. I'm Rebecca Ward and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. We're very pleased to have Sean Bradley as our presenter today. Sean Bradley is the top automotive trainer and consultant in the country and is currently one of the most sought-after subject matter experts for internet sales, business development, and digital marketing. Beginning as a sales consultant, Sean learned the business from the ground up, holding positions at dealerships as sales manager, internet sales manager, special finance manager, and business development director. Furthermore, Sean is the only certified Franklin Covey trainer and facilitator in the automotive industry and a proud member of the National Speakers Association. Sean is also the creator of the Internet Sales 20 Group, an intensive 3-day workshop that is designed for executive management of dealerships. Sign up at www.internetsales20group.com. During the webinar today, if you have any questions, please use the questions feature located on the corner of your screen to submit them. All of the telephone lines and computer microphones have been muted so that we don't have any background noise. Therefore, the only way to submit questions is in writing. At the end of the webinar, we will answer as many questions live as possible. If we're unable to answer your question because we run out of time, or if it is of a specific nature and you're an existing client, you can always reach out directly to your DigiGo contact. Later today, you will receive an email including a copy of the full recorded webinar and the presentation slides. Sean has a lot of information to cover, so don't worry, we will send you these materials for your future reference. They're also a great resource to share with your colleagues or through your social media channels. If you're wondering if we're going to try and sell you our products today on the webinar, don't worry, we will keep it purely educational. However, we will give you the opportunity at the end of the webinar to receive more information on DigiGo's products. So now, let's get started with learning all about how to actually make money in car sales. Sean?
Yes, thank you so much. I do appreciate the opportunity to present this webinar to you and your audience. So let's get started. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is the problem. The problem that I see it straight up is that people aren't making money in this industry. Let me just stop there for a second because this is what the entire webinar is about, and I honestly believe if you're selling cars, you're a sales manager, you're an internet department, hell, if you work at a dealership at any position, it's all about making money. People do not just wake up one day and say to their mom and dads, or their parents or their guardians, you know what, when I grow up, I'm going to work at a car dealership. The majority of people that are not born into the industry, meaning they had a relative that was a manager or an owner, we're here by circumstance because we needed a job or we didn't have a lot of options. But I got to tell you this, though. The people that do the best in our industry figure out how to make money. Now, I hear all the time, I want to make $100,000. I want to make $200,000. I want to make, if you're a manager, $300,000. I want to this. I want to do that. You know what? Stop it. Stop it. There's a lot of wannabes out there. A lot of people that say want to be millionaires. They want to be business owners. They want to be successful, but they don't ever get the opportunity to do that because they don't know how. The other problem that I see, and I hear all the time, it's like an epidemic, is that people run around and say that the car business is like your own business, or car sales is like owning your own business. Stop that. No, it's not. Not if you don't know how to own your own business or run your own business. Because if you don't know all the different things that a business owner knows how to do, an entrepreneur knows how to do, then you're not a business owner. You're a freaking employee. Let's get that straight. So again, the problem that I see, there's so many people in the automotive sales industry are not making money. And again, I'm tired of people saying, I want to sell 20 cars. I want to sell 25 cars. Who the hell wants to sell 20 cars or 25 cars if you're giving cars away? Let me pause for a second there. Let that marinate, all right, people? All right, it doesn't impress me if you're a 15-car, 20-car person, 30-car person. Hell, I wouldn't even have any respect for you if you sold 40 cars, but you gave cars away. Now, there are exceptions. If you are at a dealership that is volume-based and you get franchise money or stair-step money or, back-end money for volume, okay, I can understand that to some degree. But why not do both? Why not sell volume and gross deals? Anybody could give cars away. The key is how do you max gross? Now, this webinar is going to be specifically for the sales consultant, the automotive sales professional, or the sales manager or the GSM. Now, again, the principles that I'm going to lay out here could be applicable for internet sales or BDC reps or other parts, but it's predominantly for showroom sales and showroom sales management. Okay, so let's get into it. and this is like a reality check. I'm going to go through some of the basics. First and foremost, I'm not sure if you all understand this or not, but there are approximately 17,500 franchise dealerships. So again, those are franchise dealerships. There's an additional probably 25 to 35,000 independent buy here, pay here's. But I'm just going to put that on the screen, 17,500 franchise dealerships. The average salesperson per dealership is approximately 10. So that means the average dealership in the country has about 10 salespeople. Some more, some less, but you average them up, it's about 10 people. Here's where it gets scary. The average salesperson only sells 9.6 units apiece. You might be on the phone like, well, wait a minute, I sell 10, I sell 15, I sell 20. Well, God bless you, but guess what? You're above average because the average salesperson only sells 9.6 units. Here's another crazy number. The average salesperson's average commission per car, and I'm going to break out what that means, a little bit further on in the PowerPoint, is only about $350 to $450. Now the difference is, conventional versus Highline. Conventional to me are traditional vehicles are like Ford, Chevy, Toyotas, non-Highline. What do I mean by Highline? Porsche, Mercedes, etc. Now again, these are just averages. If these numbers don't reflect you, then you're either below or above average. But again, 17,500 dealerships, the average amount is about 10 salespeople. They're only selling 9.6 cars. And they're only generating $350 to $450 per car. So now, what does that mean? Okay, this is crazy. This is cray-cray, as my daughter would say. So this is average commission per car if it's at $350 and at $5. Okay? So average units sold per month, you're looking at your monthly intake is $3,360, okay, in a month at $350 per car. At $400 per car, you're looking at only $3,800, okay, in a month. That means weekly at $350, you're only doing $781. This is gross. This is not net. Okay, at $400 per car, you're only at $893 a week. Hourly, okay, you're at $15.60 per hour, okay, and you are at $17.80 per hour at 400. But look at the yearly salary, $40,000 to $46,000, and this does not include time spent out of the dealership, networking, prospecting, making phone calls, living and breathing your career. Okay, this is just, about 50 hours a week. Now, let's go through this. 40K a year, not bad, right? Yes, it is bad. Okay, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I've got people that I know that work at McDonald's, and I think McDonald's is awesome, but I pulled this off of Glassdoor.com. The average McDonald's manager makes $42,000 a year, just for making sure people's fries are good and their coffee's not too hot. So again, why the hell would we want to settle for only $40,000? And if you are at $350 per car, you're making less than a McDonald's manager. And again, I'm not trying to, embarrass anybody or hurt your feelings. I just want to put shit in perspective here. And I said shit. It is what it is. Okay? So what you want to realize is that you're better than that. The automotive industry, you have the opportunity to max gross and max opportunity. You could make as much money as you could possibly earn. That's the key phrase. You can make as much money as you can earn, or you can make the same amount or less than a McDonald's manager. The choice is yours. By the end of the webinar, if you guys need any applications for the Mickey D's, just holler at me. Okay, now, so why is this a reality? Okay, nobody ever showed you how to make money in car sales. And I understand that. And this is an epidemic. This is not just the car sales industry. I think the United States of America is plagued. I think this country is plagued with mediocrity in education. There's very, very little financial education in schools, even in universities, to be honest with you, unless you're majoring in finance. There's very little understanding and clarity about how to accumulate wealth and how to keep it. Okay, there's a lot of rich people that are broke or go bankrupt because they don't know how to manage their money, how to make money. So again, if you are not making the money that you deserve or you want or you need to make, it's probably not because it's your fault. It's the system is not conducive to educate you and show you how to actually make money in this industry. Hopefully, by now, you understand this is going to be a hardcore workshop, a webinar. So let's get into it. So what does this mean about how to actually make money in car sales? Well, what I want you to understand is that there's a couple steps that you need to kind of envelop yourself in. First is your expenses, and I'm going to break that down in a second. You need to understand your expenses. You need to understand the tax rates, and then you need to understand your average commission per car. So what do I mean by expenses? I'm going to break down the expenses in a second, but here's the thing why it's relevant. When I go to a salesperson, or when I go to the sales manager, or when I even go to an internet director, when I go to any automotive professional, I ask them, what are your goals? Oh, I want to sell 20 cars. Well, why do you want to sell 20 cars? Oh, I don't know, so I can make a lot of money. What's a lot of money? I don't know, more than I'm making now. It makes no sense. It makes no kind of sense. There's no logic to the numbers that people randomly pull out of the sky. So what I want you to understand, the most important aspect for you to learn how to make money in car sales is first, know thyself. Socrates said it, best. He said, know thyself, know thyself, know thyself. You need to understand what is completely relevant and important to you. So let's go into the expenses. I've broken down the expense column into 5 categories. You've got fixed expenses, you've got situational expenses, you've got living expenses, you've got incidental expenses, and you've got investments. So what does this mean? I'm going to get to it in a second. What I want you to do is forget about what you've learned before. Unlearn it just for the remainder of this webinar. Just forget about everything you've been told about how to make money in car sales just for a minute, and I want you just to clear your minds for a second, please. If you can, just close your eyes. Just picture like just whiteness. That's it, just a blank screen. And just think, okay, just get it all out of your mind, all right? Now, open your eyes and look at the screen. What I want you to do is focus on your expenses. What you need to do is understand where you at. What's your financial reality? So let's break it down. For fixed cost, you want to turn, obviously, it's like your rent, or your mortgage or your car payment. It could be your utilities. It could be your I don't know, your phone bills. It could be cable. It could be stuff like that. Now, for situational, it could be child support, medical expenses. If you've got, an emergency car repair, or check this out, situational could also be like holidays. If it's a birthday, if it's an anniversary, if it's a, some type of celebration, whatever. Those are situational things. Then you have living expenses like food, gas, tolls, leisure, etc. Actually, or you could break it down into, incidentals, a little subcategory. Let's just go through food. Okay, so food and leisure. Let's just use entertainment. Let's categorize it that way. I stand corrected. So if you had like food in the living, like restaurants, leisure would be like movie theaters, etc. I'll put incidentals and gas and tolls. So if you use incidentals as like your gas and your tolls and miscellaneous stuff, if you look at the color codes right here, you've got orange, of course, because I love orange. These 4 are things that you like pretty much need. But what about investments? Well, what do you mean by that, Sean? What about like stocks, bonds, 401k, college funds? What about real estate? And I don't mean your primary residence. I mean like real estate investments. Okay, so look at the way that I break the categories down. Fixed, situational, living, incidentals, and then investments. So you now have 5 categories. What you want to be able to do is not only categorize all of your expenses, you obviously want to not just put all, you don't want to just have 5 labels and then a couple bullet points. You want to put the numbers. How much is your rent, your car, your this, your that? How much is your situational? How much is your living? How much is your incidentals? How much, how much, how much? You're going to come up with a number, okay? What I want you to be able to do is understand there's needs and there's wants. There's stuff that you need to pay or you're in trouble. There's needs and there's wants. Again, needs and wants. So once you kind of factor in what those numbers are, now what I want you to do before I go to the next slide is think about, you ever heard of like the Sealy Posturepedic mattresses or whatever it is? You got the Sleep Number mattress. You could have like the Dr. Scholl's, your gel number. I want you to have your own sales number. When you say, and I'm going to show you the formula in a couple minutes, when you say I want to sell 20 cars, it better mean something. There needs to be a financial number tied to those units. Okay, and this is how you get to how many cars you want to sell. You got to begin with the end result in mind. You need to ascertain how much money do you need to make? How much money do you want to make? How much money do you deserve to make? And you can't just pull that number out of the sky. You need to be able to take the time to break down those reality checks. Okay, now, this is just an example. Okay, I just pulled this out of the sky. Let's say your fixed costs were $2,000, your situationals were $1,000, your living expenses were like $3,200, your incidentals were like $100, and then your investments were $800. That comes up to about $8,000. I don't really care what it is. Living expenses to me seem a little high here. Maybe it's $2,000 here, and then it's $1,800 investments. It doesn't really matter because again, let me backtrack. This is all about you. That's the best part about it. Just like a snowflake, no individual salesperson should have the same exact situation. You've got different situations between fixed, situational, living, incidental, and investment and future goals. So again, you need to map that out, and then you need to put what those numbers are. So let's say the numbers here, it's 8,000. Okay, let's say between what you need and you want to make, it's $8,000. Here's the conundrum. It's the word of the day. Write that down. Okay, here's the conundrum. Is that most people turn around and they do backwards math. They're like, oh, I need to make $5,000, $6,000, and then they work their asses off, and guess what? They make $5,000 or $6,000. They wonder why they're broke because they forget something called. You ready for this? Taxes. What about taxes? Yeah, good old Uncle Sam, the IRS. They ain't no joke. All right. So the reality is here. If you need and want to make $8,000, especially at that tax bracket, in my opinion, you need to factor in that probably about 1/3 at least is going to be taken. So again, here's the reality. If you need and want to make $8,000, your model needs to be set up for $12,000. Because if you gross $12,000 in commissions, bonuses, spiffs, whatever, you're going to lose about $4,000 to taxes. So then you'll be able to net the $8,000. And if you net the $8,000, then guess what, people? You'll be able to make your monthly nut and then some, okay? So again, this is really, really important, and I've never in my 15 years in the automotive industry had somebody ever break this down to me like this, so I hope that you guys are getting value out of this. So what I want you to do is now that we've got to this stage, we got to the taxes, now what? Okay, the average commission per copy. A lot of people don't ever track this number, and it kind of scares me because I think this is really important. Most dealerships, not all dealerships, but most dealerships have a draw, or there's like no salary, or there's like a $100 a week salary, whatever it is. So this is really simple how we calculate this. The average commission per copy. And what I mean by that, it's not just commissions. I just kind of say the word commission. It's basically if you take whatever spiffs that you have, from the dealership or from the manufacturer, whatever spins, whatever bonuses, whatever commissions, whatever salaries. What you got to do is basically, look at what you made at the dealership divided by how many cars you sold, and that could give you your average commission. I'm just using the number 400 right here just for, example purposes. So let's just say if you turn around and you figure out your average commission between spiffs, spins, bonuses, commission, salary, and how do you get that number? By dividing it by your whole compensation divided by how many cars you sold. Let's say that comes up to 400. Okay, so remember that number for a second. You got $400. Now what? Find out what your dealership average commission per copy is. What's the highest, what's the lowest, and where do you fall? This is something, again, that I don't see a lot of salespeople doing. This is really important. So if I was a salesperson at ABC Motors, I would want to know what my average commission per copy is, myself. But I would also talk to my GSM or my sales managers, and I'd want to know, hopefully they know this information. And if not, if there's managers on this call, you should really track this. This is good field intelligence for your sales meetings. You want to be able to let people know in your dealership what is the lowest person's average commission per copy, and then what the highest person is, because then it's a good benchmark. Because if the average commission per copy for your store is 400, and the lowest one is 300, and the highest one's 520, and you are at 325, you have a lot of opportunity to grow. So again, I want to put that on your radar. Average commission per copy is very, very, very important, and it can significantly, put into perspective where you're at. Okay, so now, going into this, I want to talk about this for a second because people don't realize how powerful average commission per car, per unit, per copy, whatever you want to call it, is, because this is going to change the paradigm. If you start to get obsessed, people, about your average commission per copy, let's just say we want to hit the 400 mark right here, $400 per car, it'll change the conversation you have with your desk. Instead of going to your desk after the first pencil and saying, okay, hey boss, they're trying to be at $299 a month and they've only got like $500 total out of pocket, what what can you do? Instead of working against your damn desk, your conversation should change if you're cognizant and you are aware of the average commission per copy situation. You should be going to your desk and, okay, listen, boss, I need to make $400 per copy. Am I on the right car? How about that right now? Because your desk manager, your GSM should be able to tell you really quick, you're not going to make $400 on this car. So then what you need to do is skedaddle out of the desk and go and sell that customer, that prospect, a vehicle that you could make your average commission per copy. The game is to be sold, not told. Sales is about transference of energy, okay? You are a sales professional. You need to sell them on what is the best situation for yourself and the dealership, simultaneously identifying all their wants, wishes, expectations. This is how sales professionals flip people from a new car to a used car, from a finance to a lease, from whatever car to an aged unit, because there's bonuses. Work your pay plan. You got to understand that's definitely a breakout tip. And Dichigo had asked me, Sean, what are the breakout tips? Work your pay plan. You've got to master what your pay plan is and have a relationship with your desk, your tower, on how you're going to be able to achieve your financial goals. Don't work against your desk and try to just drop gross and drop payments, what have you. You need to turn on and have the right logic in your mind. Look, I need $400 per car. Am I on the right car? No. Or what do I need to do to be able to achieve this? Then I don't mean that literally verbatim, but you need to be able to have that top of the mind, to be able to be cognizant, and here's why. Once you've got this concept down of average commission per copy, guess what we could focus on? Okay, let's put it together. Okay, I'm going to put it all together now. So now we have your expenses plus the tax rate divided by your average cost per copy is going to give you your formula of how many cars that you want to sell. Watch this. Boom. Okay, so again, this is just a formula. If you don't have expenses and needs and wants that equal $8,000, then you don't need to sell 30 cars. If you don't have, if you have a higher average commission per copy, you follow me? Then you don't need to, sell 30 cars. Give you an example. It's just basic math. If you were making, $500 per car, okay, let's just basically do it this way. So if you're at $500 car, it's really simple. It's only 24 cars. So let's just use this formula really quick here. Let's just keep this the same. If you had $8,000 in wants and needs that you needed to make, you needed to net $8,000. Based on the tax rate, you know what I mean, you need to make $12,000. If your average commission per copy was $500, then you don't need to sell 30 cars. You only need to sell 24 cars. Okay, but if your average commission is only $400 per copy, then you need to sell 30 cars. But this is the formula. This is priceless what I'm giving you now. No salesperson should ever go into the beginning of the month and say, oh, I want to sell 10 cars. I want to sell 15 cars. It doesn't make any sense. Think of this like your Sealy or your mattress number, your Dr. Scholl gel number, whatever the hell else analogy you want to come up with, is that you need to tie a direct fiscal and emotional numerical number towards the units you want to sell. If you do that, I promise you, it'll mean more. You will have more reason to hit that objective because it's going to give you everything that you want, need, and deserve. My managers that are listening to this, think about this. This is strong right here, what I'm telling you. And what I would do is at the beginning, probably the first day of the month or the last day of the month, I would create these sheets. I would have all my salespeople fill out what their goals and objectives are for the projections and forecasting. And how they would do that, they'd look at their expenses. Because remember, you should do this on a monthly basis because, everything changes, I think, on a monthly basis. Different seasons, different holidays, different situational expenses. Maybe the fixed costs stay the same, and maybe, some of the investments stay the same, but some of the other variables, whether it's incidental, living, or situational, they might change. So every single month, you should figure out what your wants and needs are financially, what the estimated tax reality is, what your average, commission per copy is, and then based on that, that's going to dictate how many cars you need to sell. Not the backwards doing this, ready, fire, then aim, which a lot of salespeople do and a lot of managers do. They do ready, fire, then aim instead of ready, aim, fire, is figure out exactly what your financial situation is. Now that you understand how I got to this number. I don't just I want to sell 30 cars out of the sky. What I'm doing right here is just basically explaining to you that here's how you come up with those numbers. Now watch this. How do you sell that many cars and in turn make more money? It's the money map. It's the mind map. Now, I've showed this before on previous webinars. It's phenomenal. You know, this is really a powerful tool. Is that just look at this for a second. I'm going to let you just look at the screen. Here is where you would put the 30 units right here. Now, basically, if it's 30 units, you need to begin with the end result in mind and figure out exactly where you're going to get those units from. Okay, you follow me? Where are you going to get those units from? It's great that you say, I want to sell 30 cars. Listen to me, I'm only 5'5". I use this joke all the time. I'm only 5'5". I could say I want to be tall, but that shit ain't happening. You know what I'm saying? So again, it is what it is. You know, if you say, I want to sell 30 cars, just because you say the words, I want to sell 30 cars, doesn't make it so. If you really, truly want to sell 30 cars, like Dr. Covey says from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, begin with the end result in mind. There's 8 ways that a showroom sales consultant can sell an automobile. You've got walk-ins, you've got feedbacks, you've got phone ups, internet ups, service customers, previous customers, referrals, and prospecting. Okay, so what you want to do is in this black box right here, this is 30 because we just showed you that's how you get to whatever number is. I don't care what the number is, 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever it is your financial dreams and aspirations are, you put that number here and then you break those units down. Because if you say especially 30, I'm a 30-car guy. I used to average 30 units. I sold 33 cars. It ain't easy. That's why only the average salesperson out of the hundreds of thousands of salespeople in this country that sell cars, they only sell 9.6 units a month. It ain't easy. It's more than triple what the average person does. So you need to have a strategy in how you're going to do that. And here's my strategy, the mind map projection. You take the 30, you break it down, where do you think you're going to sell those cars from? Because there's 8 ways. The average salesperson only uses about 3 to 4, nowhere even close to all 8. Again, I'm going to say the average salesperson only uses 3 or 4. So now, after you break down exactly where you're going to sell these units from, or where you think you're going to sell these units from, then this column over here basically says how many people you need to demo to sell this amount. This column right here is how many people you need to talk to demo this amount, to sell this amount. Now, it gets even further. I even break it down per day, per week, per month. So I have the formula down here. This is based on if you want to sell 30 cars and make over $140,000 a year, here's the model, okay? Now the trick is, I don't really care where you break down the 30. I don't care if you've got 5 here and you've got 0 here. It doesn't matter. This is wherever you think your personal strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are. You break it down right here. You follow what I'm saying? Again, this is whatever you think that your reality is going to be able to hold. Because I've got salespeople that can't take internet ups or can't take phone ups because they have a BDC or whatever. Or I've got I got dealerships that don't have service departments. They might be a used car independent dealership, or it might be a special finance, or whatever it is. So if you can't turn around and use all 8 areas, you have to overcompensate. So I don't want you to say, oh, this doesn't work, you can't use 8, then fine. Then you need to overcompensate. Look at this. None of these numbers are intimidating. Look at this. The highest number is an 8. To sell 30 cars, look, 2, 8, 4, 4, 2, 2, 3, 5. If you break this down, it's really not intimidating. When you think of 30 cars, you think, oh my gosh, that's so overwhelming. That's too much. But check this out. It's really not if you break it down, on an individual category basis. So let me go through this. You should know per day, per week, per month, how many people you need to speak to. You need to know per day, per week, per month, how many people you need to demo in order for you to be able to know per day, per week, per month, how many people you need to sell. This is a very powerful tool. I'm just extremely, proud to say that I have a tremendous amount of dealerships that we're working with that are using this. And by the way, this is a free plug. So we've actually developed a mind map projection app for free. There's no sales whatsoever. We're releasing it through iTunes and Android at the 20 group. So you could get this thing for free. It's awesome. Now, let's go into here. The last part is the accountability. So there's a couple different parts to this. Let me go before I explain what's on my screen. The first part of this is kind of like the setup. If you really want to know how to make money in car sales, you got to start with yourself. You need to understand, what your expenses are and what your investments, how much do you need, want, and deserve to make. That's the first part of this whole webinar. And then we talked about also understanding, the tax reality. We also talked about, the average commission per car. So that's basically understanding the numbers. With that information, you're able to identify, that you need to sell X amount of cars. In this example, we said 30. So once you've identified the 30, now with this mind map projection, this is the second part, is, okay, instead of just showing you this, I showed you how I got to this number. The whole first half of the webinar was showing you how to get to the 30 number. Now that we've got the 30, okay, I need to sell 30, and I know why I need to sell 30 cars. This shows you what the mind map projection, this is like a Garmin GPS precision on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, talk to, demo, and sell. Now that you've got your projection, the final piece of the puzzle, and I think one of the most important pieces, is the accountability. Because this sounds good, but how are you going to be able to make sure that this thing actually works? Well, the accountability, what you need to be able to do on a daily, weekly basis, you need to be able to track your connections, your appointment shows, and your sales. The connections could be on the phone connections. They could be live ups that come through. They could be internet connections. They could be social media connections. They could be, on the street connections, whatever. You need to be tracking on a daily and weekly basis. Look at this. They're tracking it daily and weekly basis. How many connections do you have? How many appointments did you make? How many appointments showed? And how many sales? Now, you also have, and this is what we do with all of our clients, again, is that we have this, like the spreadsheet that we use as a Google shared doc. And then when when the app comes out, it'll all be automated and mobile and all that stuff. But we basically, all of our dealers, we give this for free on a Google shared drive. So the salespeople are able to track week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, and then obviously the reason why there's 5, I know there's actually 4.3 weeks in a month. So we actually have week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4.3 to be exact. So again, think about how strong that is. You have an actual mechanism now and how you're going to identify your financial wants, needs, expectations. You understand the average commission per copy. You understand the tax reality. And then between all that information, you're able to ascertain how many cars you actually need to sell, numerically why it makes sense. Then you use the money mind map projection to create that grid on exactly how and where you're going to sell those cars, those 8 different ways. And then after that, on a daily basis, you should be policing yourself. And then your managers should be, this is what the managers should be utilizing to do one-on-ones. And then, evolution meetings is this: connections, appointments, shows, and sales. And people, I'll be honest with you, I've never seen this before, from anybody else. I've seen little pieces of different things, but never like a presentation like this. And for me, I went from being a car salesperson, I was salesman of the month, I was salesman of the year, to 5.5 years on the front lines. I left, and 10 years ago, it's funny, next month is my 10-year anniversary, I left the car dealership world in my mid-20s to launch my first company. Fast forward, I own 7 companies, 2 of them in the multi-million-dollar category. I'm a millionaire car salesman, and I'm saying that humbly, not showing off. I'm just saying to you, if you know how to make money in this industry, sky's the limit. I know people that make $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year selling cars. Are they the normal person? Absolutely not. Here's one of my phrases I believe in, and I live with every day. If you want the things that the average person doesn't have, you've got to be willing to do the things the average person isn't willing to do. Disclaimer, because we're on a webinar. Legally, morally, ethically speaking, okay? But I'm going to repeat that. If you want the things that the average person doesn't have, you've got to be willing to do the things the average person isn't willing to do to get them, like work hard and work strategically. It's not just about working hard. You've got to work smartly. So going into this, if you want to print your own money, again, this is it. You could print your own, you could print your own money. Car sales, in my opinion, is, and I'm not contradicting myself, give me my latitude, is like owning your own business. But the key is knowing how to make money. The key is knowing how to be an entrepreneur. The key is knowing how to be a business owner. The key is actually creating a business, not just taking ups and taking orders. Again, I started this series that I do every week, Make Money Monday. This is all I'm about, is making money. I'm not good at very much else, business-wise, except for how to make a lot of money. So I hope that you all got a tremendous amount out of this this webinar. The other thing I will say is that that was mentioned in the beginning, I have an Internet Sales 20 group that's going to be coming up on April 8th, 9th, and 10th. It's called the Internet Sales 20 Group. KPA and DigiGo are proud sponsors. So again, the date is April 8th to the 10th in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I'm going to be talking about this and a lot more. So if you're interested in attending the Internet Sales 20 Group, again, it's internetsales20group.com. And if you have any questions, it'd be my pleasure to answer them right now.
All right. Thank you so much, Sean. Is that all that you have for us today?
Well, I did because I have a lot more I could elaborate on, but what happens is the last couple KPA webinars I did, if you check the tapes, I had questions, and then the questions, I could freestyle the questions. So I wanted to give a little extra time, for the questions on the webinar. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all the time that you've put in today, and we do have some questions. Just a reminder that the telephone lines and computer microphones have been muted, so everyone will need to submit any questions in writing at this time. Okay, so Sean, can you tell me what you think the 3 most important aspects are of this webinar today?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Going through it, let me just pull up the PowerPoint. I think that the money mind map is really, really important. I think that if they, and I think you're going to have the PowerPoint put up, this is actually probably one of the most important tools, is because this puts in perspective, it's kind of hard sometimes to, especially if we want to sell more than 15 or 20 cars. There's people that have been in the business for 20, 25 years, which I humbly respect, that they've never sold 20 cars. So when you say to somebody like that has a lot of time, a lot of energy, you could sell 30 cars. They might think, yeah, BS. So I think this is a great takeaway, is this mind map projection, because it puts it in perspective, and there's no questions about it. I mean, if you look at this, it's on my screen right here. You take the 30 units and you break it down to where you're going to sell your cars from. It reinforces, exactly where they can get these opportunities from. It breaks down how many people you need to actually demo test drive, and to do that, how many people you need to speak to. And I break it down on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, for all these categories. So I say that's the first thing that's really, really important as a takeaway. And I'm going out of order, is the mind map projection. The next thing I would say is what I said in the beginning, about how do you get the number, because I can't stress this enough. I've personally trained over 8,500 automotive sales professionals myself. I've trained that many people, not my employees. And dealing with almost 10,000 automotive professionals, it's crazy that it's a common theme. And the common theme is that they have no logic on how many cars they want to sell. If you're listening to this, I'm telling the truth, is that when you ask somebody how many cars you can sell next month, I'm going to sell 15. There's no correlation. It's just a bunch of units. They might think that, I can make X amount of dollars, but it's very, very, very rare that people actually take the time to break down their financial breakdown, like I did in the very beginning of the webinar, from the 4 need breakdowns of expenses, and then the investment expenses, those 5 categories of cost, and then correlate that again with the the average commission per copy, and then the taxes. So I think this is great, but this I think will be even more impactful and even more powerful if your people that are listening to this actually do the exercise and come up with the number, because again, it's their number. That's why, again, I use the reference of the sleep mattress. Their whole commercial is that when you lay down, your body contours around the mattress, or those Posturepedic pillows with the space foam or whatever, because it molds around your head. I mean, that whole concept that it fits like hand in glove. It's a perfect fit. It's not a template. That's what I want your audience to to get out of this, is that if they could turn around and make the unit sales directly relevant to their personal situation, for themselves, for their spouses, for their kids, for their livelihoods, I really believe they have a way better shot of actually fulfilling their goals. So that's the second point. The third point, which I think is really, really relevant, is the accountability. Because none of this matters if you don't, can you imagine spending all that time going through the financial, elaboration and explanation, and then you actually go to this mind map, you do all this stuff, and then you just wing it, and then you wait to the end of the week, oh, I don't know why I didn't hit my objectives, or you wait to the end of the month, you're like, damn, I didn't make that money. You have to be accountable. So I think the third part is the accountability section. On a daily basis, you have to, basically, let me pull this back up. On a daily basis, in my opinion, you have to be able to keep track of all of your statistics. I call this a scorecard. So on a daily basis, you need to be tracking, almost like a tick sheet. You got to be tracking, your connections with prospects, your appointment shows and sales. And you're going to be tracking these individual variables every single day, every single week, and it's going to be able, you see the numbers right here, you could cross-reference with your real-time scorecard statistics with your mind map projection. So that's the answer to your first question, and this is why I cut it short, so I could elaborate and be winded with these long explanations.
Thank you so much. We do have another question here. While we're still on this slide, we have a question from Michael. He says, Sean, I see your metric for previous customer close is 65%, but you show talking with 16 with a sell of only 2, and the referrals is low. Can you explain the left to right metric calc concisely, please?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so again, these are closing ratios from once they're in the dealership. Let's start there. That's a great question. So the question is, how do I explain these metrics? Okay, so I'm going to go through. These are NADA statistics. These are J.D. Power statistics. These are dealer synergy statistics. These are industry standard statistics. And these are not individual dealership. This is on a national basis. So what we're finding that the average closing ratio, it's actually technically 18 to 20%, but I just rounded up because it's just easier to put on the grid. So your walk-ins are approximately 20% for fresh ups. A B-back is about 50%. Your phone ups are 50% from once they show up to the appointment. Okay, so again, remember the closing ratios are once bodies touch the showroom. Okay, this is what the closing ratios are. Internet ups. I am an internet expert. Everybody knows I'm branded for internet sales, so I get it. The average closing ratio for internet ups is 6% OEM, 8% third party, 14 to 16 website. So I'm not talking about from lead to sales. I'm talking about from when an internet up shows up to the dealership, for the appointment shows, it's approximately 50%. The service customers, there's different types of service customers, so I'm going to explain this. I'm trying to make it as hard as possible. So if you just up a random service prospect that's in there and say something like, if you just go to the service provider and see what kind of car they have there, and you up the service, customer and say, oh, that's a beautiful car. Would you consider selling me that vehicle if I get you more than it's worth? I'm just talking about like just a straight cold, upping a service prospect in the service drive and just trying to sell them, a newer pre-owned vehicle. That's why it's only 10%. I'm not talking about data mining or a hot service writer TO. Okay, that's why it's 10%. A previous customer is self-explanatory. Someone that purchased a vehicle from you before is a 65% closing ratio. Referrals are 50% and prospecting are 50%. So let me explain what this says. You see how it says talking to? The reason why the numbers are a little bit different, you see how it's 40 here and 40 here? Because the reality is that, this is a walk-in up. So a walk-in, you know what I mean, it's the same thing as basically, them coming in. That's why it's 40. But versus an internet up, for example, an internet up, you need to talk to about 32 people on the phone to get, the right amount of people to show up. Okay, once you get, 8 people to show up for the appointment, you're looking at the 50% selling ratio. Does that make sense?
Yes, it absolutely does. Thank you so much for explaining that.
It is complex.
Yeah, and we all appreciate the details there. Before we get to our next question, I'm going to put a poll up on the screen. At the beginning of the webinar, I promised you the opportunity to learn more about DigiGo's services. Are you interested in learning more about our digital marketing products? If you would like to be sent additional information, please go ahead and select a simple yes or no on the poll now. Okay, let's get back to our questions. We have one more here that says, I'm curious how you would work social media into what you do for mindmap. Can you explain that?
Okay, so going into mindmap, this is an interesting question. Okay, here's what I would say. There's 2 levels of social media. Again, especially this is a DigiGo presentation. I know they're really big on social media. The majority of, can you sell cars on social media? Absolutely. I've got clients, that are engaged in social media that are able to convert, relationships into traffic into actual appointments. but I would say that I don't have an actual number, like these numbers right here that I could fit in, where it's a 50% closing ratio, 20% closing ratio. I think it's too new, in my opinion, to be able to quantify exactly how many leads could be generated from social media and then converted to appointments to shows. But I would say this. If you're asking this question, you guys must be pretty progressive in social media. So here's how I would suggest how you can work it in. Just do a 90-day rolling, and what I mean by that is look at your data for the last 90 days. How many leads can you actually calculate and quantify came from a social media initiative? How many leads, and what I mean by leads is how many people turned around and said, I would like some type of information, I'd like a phone call, or I'm interested in coming in for test drive or something like that. So calculate how many leads you had, and then basically go into identify how many appointments were made, how many showed, and then again how many sold. Once you get that number, all it is I would basically put that into, you could either do one of two things. If it's similar, honestly, if it's similar to the 50% once it gets in, like an internet, you could either consolidate that as an internet up opportunity, or if you wanted to be really, really specific, you could go to 9 ways and add social media as a 9th category. Me personally, I would probably absorb it towards internet ups because it's coming off of an internet initiative. Social media is part of internet. But I would only do that if the closing ratio from appointment show is approximately 50%. Then I would absorb it. If it is different, if it's higher or lower, I would then break it out to a 9th category, personally. Great question, though.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that does wrap up our question section of the webinar today. Sean, do you have any final comments before we end the webinar?
No, I just wanted to thank everybody for the opportunity to kind of go over this webinar, and then again I wanted to thank DigiGo and KPA for hosting the webinar. Again, I'm always accessible. My information's on the slides, and you're going to put up the recorded video for everybody, correct?
Yes, I am.
All right, and perfect. I look forward to seeing DigiGo at the upcoming Internet Sales 20 group. And everybody, this is my 10-year anniversary. And on top of it being our 10-year anniversary, we have a ridiculous VIP party. And then we'd love to be able to have all the DigiGo and KPA, clients and friends part of the Internet Sales 20 group. So I wish you all, much success. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me or call me, and I'd be more than happy to give you some free advice. And if not, I'll see you in Atlantic City in April.
All right. Thank you so much for presenting our webinar today. You did a wonderful job and gave us some really valuable information there. And thank you to the audience for participating. I look forward to seeing you all back here next week for the next DigiGo webinar. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.
All right, bye.